There's, so much leverage behind that in terms of the mental focus and clarity of, being more in that lower carb, stable blood sugar, and being able to utilize that. And then, at night, maybe having more carbs or not. It really just, like you said, depends on the person. I think the intuitive side of eating, I think a lot of people get confused with what that actually means. And I think from my perspective, the more metabolically flexible you are, actually the easier it is to kind of pay attention to those things and like you said, find what works for you. And, for you, for example, you enjoy the mental clarity side of things and not having carbs during the day. And there's some days where I do that too. And then if I want to have carbs later on the day, it's a good strategy as well. And that's a strategy that I use with some of my clients where they want to actually backload their carbs and have more at night because it helps them to actually wind down a little bit more, helps with that release of serotonin, helps them to sleep more throughout the night. Sometimes having a little bit, I found one strategy that I implement with some of my clients is implementing a little bit of fruit at night if they are on that lower carb side of things and they feel better with that. Having a little bit more carbs at night, implementing a little bit of fruit or fructose, because that's going to actually help fuel your liver throughout the night. And so that can help with managing blood sugar levels throughout the night. So that's a good strategy for some people who might be waking up in the middle of the night, or they might feel kind of like restless, at night trying to, wind down for bed. So having a little bit more carbs to help, like I said, facilitate a little bit more serotonin production, and then also actually fuel you throughout the night. So you're not having, dips in blood sugar that could be causing you to wake up. But this is also going to come down to, there are some things that I definitely make sure I look for with women. But again, it also just comes back to the individual person, because everybody has such a different lifestyle, activity level. But with women in general, from the years of working with clients and mostly women, I do work with some men. I've just seen that fasting can be a little bit harder for women, in the sense of the longer fasts can be a little bit more stressful. We know that women have a little bit more, our hormones are obviously different throughout the month versus males are kind of the same. So that can play a role in how we do with fasting, how we do with lower carb, and using carbs strategically with that. Again, in that sense, there's people who kind of say like, oh, you can implement carbs around certain parts of your cycle. And I've tried that before with my clients, and I found that there is some studies that show some things, but when we put it into practicality and we put it into the actual individual, it seems to be so variable depending on the female. Same for myself. And it really, for me, it definitely comes down to that overall stress load that person is experiencing. And that will actually determine how well they do with fasting protocols, how well they do with a little bit lower carb versus maybe higher carb. And then in terms of just, eating enough food in general is one of the things that I work with a lot of my female clients with, is realizing that we don't have to continuously restrict food 24/7, and how that can be an issue in itself, especially if we are looking to change our body composition and maybe build some more muscle. I think that's super important for females to kind of realize that if you want to look the way that you see other females like looking toned or whatever it may be, that comes from having muscle right underneath the body fat. So kind of going down that kind of that's a whole other rabbit hole, but I think that's super important for females, of course.